Sunday, the 21st of August, 2022, not October, like I said on the last pod, idiotically. Today's show, we relive what was a pulsating Lancashire derby at Turf Moor as the Seasiders fought back from 2 goals down, not once but twice, to return to Fylde Coast with a much-deserved and hard-earned point. I'm John Esmeralda. This is Seasiders podcast, match reaction show. Burnley 3, Blackpool 3. Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Seasiders podcast match reaction show. I think, gents, just before we start, we should all just raise a glass, a can, a bottle of whatever you're drinking to those boys in Tangerine at Turf Moor on Saturday. What a brilliant performance and afternoon, Nick.
Oh, it's one of those games I think you'll talk about in 20 years' time. You know, when you look back about favourite away games, it had everything, didn't it? You know, it was absolutely fantastic, particularly second half, and a well-deserved point. Yeah, it's what football's about, games like that.
Yeah, I think I put that on my Twitter, on the Twitter feed afterwards. So it's what you live for at football. Sean, just unmute yourself before you come in. Green room, we were just talking about Sean's experience from the press box. But you said to me you'd rather been in the limbs than in the press box when that third went in. How did it look like from up there?
Absolute carnage, I think would be the word to describe it. I think, to be fair, when I came into the ground early doors, I saw that fence between the two fans and about 6 stewards. I was sort of expecting the worst, to be honest. But, you know, they weren't too bad, but absolute carnage in there. I think I said to Michael Appleton afterwards, I think I asked the question about the fans. I said there'd be a few bruises in the morning. I think he thought as much when he looks across as well. And, you know, it was just unbelievable. And like I say, I'd much rather have been in there. I'd have paid no amount of money to have been in there than sat in the press box.
When that third went in, I was at the front with Eddie. As you can see on the club's official
Tangerine
Twitter
TV
feed.
fame.
Yep. I was at the bottom with Eddie, and when the third went in, it was just chaos, pandemonium where I was. I think I've got cut shins, Mitch. I think I've got marks all over my legs. So, any incidents where you were celebrating, or was it just a nice, polite round of applause?
Yeah, we just well played, chaps, and then sat down again. No. It was sensational. I'd spent about 15 minutes being quite annoyed by the bloke in front of me, and then about 15 minutes later, I was all over him, like in his arms, and it was great, you know. So I had a very strange celebration where I kind of set off like up the row of seats. It just sort of vacated, and I found myself kind of running sideways, which was quite odd. But there we go.
I lost Eddie in a melee at the front. I was like, oh my God, he's going to get like trampled to death because it was just chaos. People were just flying everywhere, and my specs got knocked off. My bins went flying, so I had to go and get a steward to go and pick them up for me in front. I was like, oh, fucking hell, someone's going to step on him.
Which did you go for first, your glasses or Eddie?
Neither. I was just too busy loving it. So that'll be all right. And I was a bit worried, actually, but thankfully, he was fine. He was just loving it himself. He was absolutely buzzing at the end of that. He said that was brilliant. It was the best. He said it's the best day of his life. So he's well and truly hooked into the Tangerine machine now, which was brilliant. Just that comment from Dennis there. Look at that one. The fans look like maggots in a jar when that that sums it up perfectly. But yeah, everybody, welcome to the show this evening. It's great to have everyone on. It's sure to be a great show this evening. So pre-match, a bit of a preamble. What we all got up to. Nick, you went on the PLF coach.
Yes, like on there? Yeah, there was 2 coaches actually. Went from the thatched. It's quite sensible actually because I was going to me brother-in-law's later on to watch the boxing. So I thought if I get leathered, I'll end up falling asleep. and I'll miss the fight. So I took it very steady, actually, considering it was Burnley away. So we got there for about, what time was it? 1:30ish, I think, something like that. And we were going to go to that cricket club, but it was absolutely heaving. So we just ended up, there was like a little outside fan zone tent type thing just in the away end. So I went in there with Tim and we saw Mitch there as well. Just had a pint pre-match and then went into the game. So reasonably sensible for once for me.
Mitch, differences from Turf Moor since we last went. I noticed that little marquee that's pretty new, isn't it? Since we last visited Turf Moor and the two corners are filled in. It kind of had a bit of a more of a Premier League feel, didn't it?
Yeah, it did in some ways, but at the same time, it was still a bit ramshackle. You know, it was sort of looking out onto a Premier League ground, but actually the stand we were in was. I mean, the wooden seats aren't there anymore, are they? But apart from that, it was like the gangways were really small, and it's quite a hassle getting around that stand, like sort of getting in and out, and people were rowing in the gangways because gangways were so small. So yeah, I mean they've obviously tarted it up a bit, but it was still resolutely Burnley.
Lipstick on a pig, I think is quite an apt phrase. When we got there, I don't know what it was like for you two in the stands, but it was absolutely heaving. I think I got to the ground about 10-2, trying to get up to find our seats. That was not possible to find out where you actually sat, but it was just absolutely rammed. You just couldn't get anywhere. And
I think from watching it on the other side, there's only two actual exits, aren't there, in that stand? And it obviously because everyone was kind of trying to get into the side where everyone was standing. That first one was just completely blocked, and then the second one, because everyone was then having to make their way around to that one, was starting to get blocked as well. It seems like for the amount of fans in there, there's probably not as many exits as you probably need there to actually get out, and you could see it with it queuing.
You say that, Sean, but I'd gone in. I just thought, well, I can't be arsed getting into the big crush of people. And even on this, I was on the side where it didn't appear. I mean, I don't know if we sold out and people had just pushed into one side, or whether we, there were a few tickets left, but there was a few spaces around me. And even then, you couldn't move around the stand. I'd sort of try and get out and go back into the concourse. It was impossible just to get to the exit because those gangways are so tiny that lead to the concourse.
It was so narrow up in the press box area as well. It's so steep with the way up. And as I was saying to you beforehand, there was like loose concrete blocks as steps getting your way up. And I mean, the desk, I put my laptop on the desk and the laptop was already like coming off the edge of the desk, which shows you how narrow that even they were. So it's just an incredibly narrow stadium for some reason.
It was, I don't know, it was a bit worrying at one point. The crush, Mitch or Nick, I don't know if you saw it. There's just tons of people, and there's loads of people coming behind, and it would have been pretty scary for kids. And I said to the copper, I said, "You're going to maybe try and sort something out here?" And she just dissolved herself from all responsibility. She said, "Oh, no, it's nothing to do with us. The stewards have to deal with it." So I said, "Right, you're going to leave it then."
Yeah, I think, and it just ended because nobody sits in the seat, do they, on games like that, really? It's just you get in there and go wherever your mates are, sort of thing. And where we were, because as we came in, I say it was just single file to then get further up the stand. But there was people coming back who obviously couldn't find anywhere to sit. So it was just a complete blockage. And then there was loads of people just in the gangway. But I suppose it adds to the atmosphere then, doesn't it? Because I couldn't believe how close the Burnley fans were, and there wasn't really a lot of segregation going on. There was plenty of banter and back and forth, put it that way. But I suppose it adds to the atmosphere, doesn't it? Especially when you go 2-0 down and 3-1 down and then pull it back when they're right next to you.
There's two things there. One, it makes a mockery of the fact we seem to have to have away fans half a mile away from home fans. I don't really understand why that's the case. And two, it also, like, the culture is such that everyone stands at away games, and I love it. And it's just been accepted now that that's what happens by, stewards and authorities and police. And you never get told to sit down at an away ground. And it's just, why can't we just have a terrace then? Because if that had been a terrace, everyone could have just gone and stood where they wanted, and it would have been quite simple and quite straightforward. I thought about that when I was watching a game in Scotland, and I was on a terrace, and I was like, I'd forgotten how actually terraces just organise themselves and are quite straightforward. And if you don't have massive fences at the front, then they're not actually particularly fundamentally unsafe. And so those away games just make me think about how there's the same row after every big away game about should you sit in your allocated seat or should you go where you want? And there's always somebody who's furious because they can't sit in the seat, and there's always somebody saying, "Shut up, that's not what it's about." And it's like, well, if it was just a terrace, then it'd be fine.
Well, yeah, people can just the lads who want to get involved in the banter, they can just go over there. The families, the elder people can go over the other side, and it's fine. But then I wasn't scared. I was just thinking this could be a bit dodgier, particularly for kids, elderly people. But yeah, it all worked out in the end. Right, the game itself then. Great start, eh?
Are you putting the team up?
Oh yes. Someone talk while I do it.
Well, the obvious thing on the team was, we said it when we were having a drink outside. The obvious thing from the team was the selection of Corbinu, which I don't think anybody had really picked. And I must admit, I read the team wrong. I thought, oh, Corbinu in midfield, that's different. And that seemed completely bolt from the blue. But then it didn't actually turn out to be that way. And I'd sort of misread the team and then was surprised again when I found out where Bowler was actually playing.
Yeah, I think we all thought that Corbinu would be in the 10 initially, and then obviously, as it turned out, Lavery had been put on the right to deal with Maatsen, who obviously we'll come on to, had an interesting game, but obviously he's marauding fullback, and then obviously as you say, Josh Bowler in that 10 role, and then Corbinu on the left, and I mean we'll come on to, but I thought Corbinu was good out of possession, which was probably quite a key part of the game.
I did laugh, Sean, listening to the audio of the preview show when you sometimes he doesn't know what his own feet are doing. I think it was the way he described it. I was laughing at that. But yeah, so it was Grimshaw, Gabriel, Ekpiteta, Williams, Thompson, Connolly, Dougal, Corbinu, Bowler, Lavery, and Yates. Sean, were they adopting our safety first approach with Dougal and Connolly sort of sitting defensive midfields? How did you see the formation lining up?
Yeah, it looked like a 4-2-3-1 with Bowler in the 10, but I mean, what was the formation in the first 15 minutes, to be honest? But I think they were trying to get to grips with it themselves. But Connolly and Dougal for a midfield pair were quite advanced at times themselves as well, pushing forward once we kind of smelled blood. So, but yeah, it was that 2 holding, I think.
You're copying off Appleton there.
Yes, I am. He
said
our
that,
Messiah. Our
smelled
Messiah.
Blood. You're
Smelled
like his
blood.
disciple.
Yeah.
To be fair,
just here to spread the message of Appleton to the world.
I liked that description he used. I think the fans on the team both smelt blood. That's what he said in the second half. But we'll come to that. Nick, any issues with that team he's put out?
No, I mean, quite a few of them pick themselves at the moment, don't they? With where we are with injuries, with what happened at QPR. It was just whether it'd be, I suppose, Corbinu or Sonny Carey in. We knew Gabriel was going to come back in defence, and the rest of it, yeah, pretty much picks itself, I think, for me at the moment.
Mitch, I'd have liked to have seen James Husband in the starting lineup, perhaps, for this game. Where would you shoehorn him in? I just think he's the perfect type of player for games like that.
I'd always like to see Jimmy, but I wouldn't have put him in myself. I don't think Thompson deserves to lose the shirt. I am maybe not president of the Jimmy fan club, but certainly a paid up member of it. But I don't think Thompson deserves to lose the shirt. And I mean, we'll come into the game. I don't think Thompson had maybe quite as good a game as he's had in some games. But for me, the one was I was maybe not astonished, but I was disappointed he hadn't picked Carey, because you talked on the preview pod about it being a sort of a big chance for Carey. Next few games being really a big test of whether he's going to make it or not, and not to reprise me Rob Apter rant, but I was slightly disappointed to see Corbinu in with the shirt instead of our own player who's, you know, kind of coming of age and facing that test of whether he's going to make it or not. So that was my honest reaction to the team. Was I was happy enough with it, but I'd have liked to seen Carey in there, to be honest.
Well, he certainly stamped his mark on the game.
Absolutely.
We shall be coming to that. Right, Sean. Awful start for Blackpool. However, a moment of absolute class from Brownhill. Was that his name?
Yeah, it was good. It's a really good strike because he had to adjust like last minute as well because of the way the ball fell, and he still hit it in the top corner. But obviously, we could have probably dealt with the initial ball and the striker being able to sort of hit it down for Brownhill to strike in the first place. That's the thing. I don't think there was anything particularly wrong with the way we approached it. Burnley were always going to have the bulk of possession, and I presume he was probably kind of taking things from that Swansea game, but then to the extreme because Burnley are a lot better at doing it than Swansea are. And it was more just little individual errors and sort of lapses of concentration that cost us in those opening stages, and that was a case of it. But again, it's not really much you can do when someone's striking a ball like that.
Nick, over to you now. This game reminded me a lot of Fulham away last season. Cast your mind back to that.
Yeah, first 15 minutes where we're massively up against it, and I think Tim looked at me when it had gone to 2 and said, "This could be a long afternoon," and you're thinking, "How are we going to get back into it?" And I've just watched the highlights back before, and I think Burnley are going to be up there, aren't they? Probably.
They were a different class in that first 10 minutes.
They were.
They were
shaky defensively as the match went on, but yeah, certainly going forward, they were just picking us off at will. It was a long ball, wasn't it? Marv got caught a little bit for it, but it was a great finish. Yeah, and you're thinking, because it's not as we've said previously, it's not a ground that we've got a brilliant record at, and start like that. Yeah, I just thought, are we going to have the carrot to get back into it? Thankfully we did, but yeah, it was first 15 minutes. It was very, very difficult.
Mitch, I had some Burnley fan snide and arrogant remark at me as I was walking past that cricket field towards the ground, saying, "Yeah, you come see a good team." He's like saying, "Oh, you're looking forward to your defeat today. How many are you going to concede?" I was like, "Yeah, whatever, mate." But I was thinking after 11 minutes, after Nathan Tellers banged in second, I thought, "Oh Christ," he was right, and couldn't really see any way back from that at that point.
No, I couldn't. It was like my dad always used to say this thing to me when we used to go to games. My dad always used to say, if when you and Nick will remember this, sort of, when we just played Stoke or someone, and we just looked really small, and they all looked about half a foot bigger than us. My dad always used to go, "Oh well, nothing doing today. They're bigger and they're better." And that was it. And I just felt like that. It just felt like they're a different class, And at that point, it felt as if the pattern of the game was probably we were going to do not very much. And then they were going to score about every 8 or 9 minutes. And it was going to be a disaster because we'd done absolutely nothing. It wasn't just that they'd scored 2 goals, but we barely really got out of our own half, had we? And they were just so on top. But actually, in retrospect, when you look back at the game, they basically had the chances that they scored with and very little else. As the game went on, it didn't play it like that at all, but it totally did. That first, whatever it was, 10, 15 minutes was just a nightmare.
Sean, obviously you had a good vantage point from the press box. Were you worried from what you saw, and did you think it was a complete gulf in class between the two sides first 15 minutes?
I was worried with how clinical they were being, but I don't think we were particularly completely overrun to sort of a massive extent. It was just that they went in at half time with 3 shots on target and 3 goals. Sometimes it's just games just go like that. But if you're looking at them consistently opening us up, I don't think they really were. They were playing it about well in the midfield, and we weren't really getting hold of the ball consistently. I think the issue sometimes in these opening stages, when we are a bit nervy, we're slack with possession when we get it, and then we kind of just bring the they sort of bring the opposition back onto us, and it gives them confidence to keep coming at us because we're a little bit shaky ourselves in possession. But I thought, look, obviously 2-0 down, you're like, great, this is going to be a long day, but they looked a little bit stuttery themselves, and we were still pressing from the front even in the early stages. So I didn't think we were going to lose 6 or 7, but I was worried about how clinical they were. Yeah.
Nick, just before we got our first, there was, cast your mind back, that Nathan Teller had another a very telling moment in the game, if you will. He had a shot that was just deflected wide, very close to going in. If that had gone in, that would have been it. So it's very fine margins, isn't it? That's in the game over 3-0.
Yeah, it was. And but then, even at we said at half time, like Sean said, I said to Tim as well, everything that hits going in here pretty much. And but we still had some very good chances. Obviously, our goal, they just looked shaky when we pressed them at the back, which we did a bit as well, to be fair. And Corbino did really. I think it was Yates had started to press the keeper, so he's knocked it out, and Corbino's robbed their defender and slotted it home. And and then you're thinking, right, come on, get back into it, and then it goes 3-1 with. It was a bit of a deflection, wasn't it, off Marv, I think?
Yeah.
Lavery had a touch, and I think it was Gabriel slipped, didn't he? And then you're just thinking, oh, we've got it back to 2-1. Come on, maybe get to half time at 2-1. 3-1 down, and you're thinking, have we got the character to get back into it? But even then, in the first half, we still had some very, very good chances.
That Lavery chance.
Lavery chance. I mean, I've not seen it, not seen a replay of it, so I don't know how close it was. But it's kind of one of them where you just wait, you just expect it to hit the back of the net. I know it's up the other end, but you just expect it to hit the back of the net. And I think there was a chance as well where I think the ref blew up for it, where there was a bit of a scramble in the 6-yard box. So although we've let 3 in, it could have easily been 3-3 at half time with the chances we had.
Mitch, just going back to our goal, Corbin's. I just thought it was incredible how shaky their keeper was, trying to play it out from the back. I mean, he's played a hospital ball really into their defender. He never looked comfortable with the ball at his feet, and it's pretty incredible that they're trying to play this kind of system with players that clearly can't do it. But it was a cool finish from Corbinu. Nonetheless, it was a high pressure moment of the game, and he had to slot away. Quite easily have snatched at that. I think if Lavery had got that, I'd have probably missed.
Yeah, it was a very cool finish. It was so cool that me and the lad next to me were going, well, what happened there? We both thought it was going to be disallowed because it was so cool. He just took it so calmly, and then he reacted so calmly to scoring. He just sort of like wandered off like, oh, I've scored. And we both sort of like, have we scored? Yeah, and then kind of, yes, we've scored. And we like it just felt like he just passed it to Corbinu, who then passed it in the net from the distance of it, it was a really strange goal. But they were shaky at the back, and I think they said after the first 15 minutes or whatever, I thought it was going to be a disaster because they hadn't really revealed that they were shaky at the back yet. But as soon as we started to get at them, I think it was evident that we were always going to as long as we could not get too far behind, we were always going to have a bit of a shout if we could get at them, and obviously at half time, I was therefore going, right, we just need to get Gaz on and smack it at him and put him under as much pressure as possible. And actually probably fair play to Appleton, they didn't go for that till the point of maximum impact.
Max Gaz. To the point of Max Gaz.
Absolutely. The moment of maximum Gaz.
Yeah.
62 minutes.
We can't go that far already. Christ. I'll bring it back to I thought the Burnley fans were ridiculous, the way they were getting on the team's back about it, though, because they're 3-1 up at half time. But even when they were 3-1 up, every time they had the ball at the back, even in like a completely sound situation, it's like this, like Sean Dyche was over all of their shoulders, just telling them it was wrong because they were just right on the back of the keeper, and that couldn't have done him any confidence with how sort of they were taking it. I didn't actually think he was too bad. There was a couple of occasions where he made the odd bad decision, but I thought he made a couple of good saves, and he generally played it all right. But they were hounding the guy.
Stops.
They were just hounding him, and I don't get it. That Harwood Bellis was brilliant at bringing the ball out in the early stages and threading balls through. I mean, he provided the assist for Teller. I thought they were pretty fine, and at the end of the day, so the bloody should be the amount of money they're dishing out for these players, and all will happen is they'll just continue to buy more players until they have the right players to play that. But I think that Muric was all right at it, and obviously they're in the early stages of it. But they're not going to trust that process the way they're going on about it. It was ridiculous to me. The shouts would go long at like 30 minutes in. I was like, what's going on here? And as Company said afterwards, obviously he was talking about like percentages, and he said basically, you either go all in on that style or you go all in long ball. He said if we sort of half house it, then we're in the middle of nowhere and they're not going to get anywhere. So he's already kind of having to consistently defend what he's doing. So good luck to him, because I know some of our fans have got an Appleton's back, but I think they kind of can appreciate having patience when it comes to things like that. It's clear that they don't.
I was going to say, Sean, imagine a home crowd shouting at the manager and getting impatient. I wonder.
Who would do that?
It's funny, Sean, because I did actually mention, so I heard Company saying that sometimes we do need to go along if there's space there to exploit. So maybe he's caught in two minds.
They
did
towards the end. They did, but it's like they have. Well, exactly, because the thing with playing out from the back, people think that it's just like we're now going to just play little bit by bit, make our way up the field. The whole point of it is to draw the other opposition out so that you can then hit them in behind, and that's what they did to us in the early stages. I think their fans clearly have a complete misconception of what it is, and because obviously if they just lumped it long from the off, then we're just sat there in two banks of four and we're fine. Whereas if they're drawing us out like they did and then playing through at the end of the day, it's ideal preparation for them longer term to play a team like us who has just gone at them pressing, because it gets them used to it and the way they were able to then play through a press. Once they start being able to play through it, no one will be able to beat them.
Luckily, that moment wasn't at the weekend. So second half, Sean, we'll just keep you as the speaker at the moment. What do you think Michael Appleton did at half time? I mean, it was pretty difficult from my vantage point, but was it more of a kind of a 4-4-2 switch in the second half? So what formation do you think we switched to, and what do you think he said and did and recognised needed to happen at the break to counter what Burnley were doing? And it was so effective. It
definitely seemed like Bowler was higher up the pitch initially, and I think obviously, as you said before, we smelt blood of what they were doing at the back, and he just, as he said in his interview, I think, well, let's just go for it. And obviously towards the end it was like 4-2-4 once Gary Medine came on at times, which was just ridiculous, which is great to see because we all love that. But that was it. It was just, look, I think they sense it themselves. The players are getting really buying into it now, I think, over the past couple of weeks. And you can tell that, like, if you go in and say, because I was talking about XG at half time to people who were telling me we were going to get battered at half time. And I was like, oh, actually, in terms of chance creation, we've been okay. And it's 3 shots on target, 3 goals for Burnley. That is just not sustainable. It's not going to happen in the second half. And if they're sort of giving up chances like they were, we can get into it. And at the end of the day, the message has been the same from Appleton throughout, really. And when he's giving those consistent messages, people are going to buy into it. And we clearly did, because we came out like, I would argue that second half is the best we've played since fans have come back, personally.
It's a bold shout, Sean. That's a bold shout. But Mitch had to argue with that first 5-minute spell. I mean, we could have scored quite easily 2 goals in that first little period. We've got Jerry Yates trying to capitalise on the goalie's mistake. There was Gabriel when he headed wide. Then that free kick after that run from Bowler.
It was a lovely free kick. It really was. And to be fair to their keeper, I thought it was a superb save, because he got it right down in the bottom corner. He sort of, how he got it through the wall, I don't know. And I think the keeper must have been pretty unsighted. And he sort of just clawed it out. And yeah, we were all over them. And I suppose I was just worried that it was going to be another one of those days where, Jerry nearly scores and, Lavery gets into a great position and slices it wide. And I was, I was enjoying the way we were playing a lot, and I would agree with you with what Sean said there. It was an absolutely fantastic half of football. I think the only game I can think of that was up with it in terms of football or enjoyment of what we were doing was probably the Bournemouth away game under Critchley, which was a similar thing. But I think this was more joyous and more raw and more daring than that.
It was so sustained as well.
Almost like Fulham as well. We made comparisons with the start of the game with Fulham. Again, how we played after the unfortunate incident with the Fulham spot. I'd say it was as good as that, Sean.
I always loved that Reading performance in our way at Reading, and just the way we were able to sustain pressure and just kept coming, and there was no relenting, because we've always been a team over the past couple of seasons that plays well in spells of games. We've never had a complete 90 minutes where we've been at it at that level. And the way that we played in that second half, they just could not find an outball for like 30 minutes. We just kept coming back. And this is a side that have spent 15-20 million quid. They're about to spend 5 million quid again on another striker. They've got scouting networks all across Europe at the moment. They've got established Premier League players still in the squad. And we're doing that to them in this side that we've consistently said needs 3 or 4 extra bodies and had 2 midfielders out. We forget that, don't we? We think about what we thought about Kenny Dougal about 3 weeks ago, where he was. We had Callum Connolly and Kenny Dougal in central midfield, both players that we wrote off at times in their career in Blackpool. And then we had Theo Corbin in the 10, Josh Bowler in the 10, and it was just brilliant.
For 5 minutes in the second half, we had CJ Hamilton in central midfield, and we still got a point.
He was decent, though. He was decent, wasn't he?
Yeah, he did well,
yeah. He did well when he came on. Mitch, a telling moment in the game for me. Obviously, we've dominated the second half, but Burnley replacing Jay Rodriguez with Ashley Barnes. I think that was a strange move from Company. I think Rodriguez was causing problems. He laid off Brownhill for their goal. You can tell he's a Premier League or ex-Premier League player. He's a class player, and I think they kind of went into their old Sean Dyche mindset when they brought Ashley Barnes on, because he's more of a target man kind of player.
Well, there's 2 things there. Number one, I agree entirely with what you said about Rodriguez. He's like the player we haven't got. The lad who's big and skillful and mobile, and he just looks an absolute class act. And
Gaz 2.0.
Well,
his name's Jake Beasley, mate. He's coming.
Junior John Murphy. But the second thing was, obviously, at the point when Barnes came on, I thought, because you kind of think, oh, good, Rodriguez is going off. Mm-hmm. And then they go and coming on for Burnley, number whatever he is, Ashley Barnes. And you think, it's not that long ago since I was driving home in the car and I had 606 or whatever on, and they're going, tell you what, Robbie, what about Ashley Barnes for England? What do you think about that? Because he's a player that scored goals in the Premier League. And you think, so my that's always the mark of a side that are bigger than you when they bring on the subs and the frightening. So I thought it was going to be, the moment maybe the game turned for them. And actually Barnes did absolutely nothing. Just kind of bounced off him a few times and he trotted around not looking particularly interested. So, yeah, I think you're probably right in terms of their decisions. It was a pretty important moment.
Obviously, we made our changes 2 minutes later. Was it Medine for Corbeanu?
It was a free kick. We had a free kick, and Theo looked like Theo was going to take it, and then he didn't realise he was being subbed for ages because he was looking forward to taking a free kick.
So obviously, Big Gaz has made the difference, Mitch. Because 10 minutes later, we're back in the game. Shane Lavery, talk us through the goal. How you felt when it went in.
I have absolutely no idea that he'd scored. I just knew he'd scored. That was that the Gabriel one?
Gabe, brilliant run. Brilliant run.
Well, it all started actually one of Gaz's lovely little flicks where he just changes the direction of play, and out to Bowler, who was uncharacteristically played an early pass. lovely ball to Gabriel, and I thought, oh, he's gone too far, because Gabriel has. I love Gabriel, but he can sometimes overrun it. He sort of run right along the byline as if he's trying to run it in at the near post, and I thought, oh, he's taking it too far. And I was really struck where I was. It was quite difficult to actually see the byline and the front post, and then it suddenly. Like I'd lost the ball, and then suddenly it came across, and there was this big melee, and then they just ran away and we'd scored, and it was just fantastic, because it kind of just really felt like that. This is on now. This is on, because we played so well, and like I say, I was worried that we were going to have one of those spells where we play really well and get nothing, and we got something, and you could tell they were so shaky that there were more. We could get more.
Nick, describe the scenes when that went in. Were you near the away fans in the ground?
No, we were about halfway across. So, but I couldn't actually see the goal line. So where we were, you could see the goal, but not the goal line. So just kind of saw Gabriel, make his run, and similar to Mitch, I thought, oh, has he overrun it? And then he got a bit of a tap, didn't he? And stumbled a bit. And I thought, oh, is he going to go down? But stayed on his feet, got his head up. And I just saw the ball go across, and didn't see who got the touch, and just saw the net ripple because I couldn't see the goal line. And it was just absolute carnage, hugging strangers and all sorts. And fully deserved. And I was pleased for Lavery, because he never stops running. He'd had a couple of chances, and there was one in the second half where just before, I think he got in a decent position and really overhit across to nobody. And there was quite a few people kind of having a bit of a moan at him. So it was really pleasing to see. It wasn't far out, was a tap in, but nevertheless, great to see, and pandemonium in the away end.
Sean, I think there was, as Nick's just said, there was a bit of a call for Lavery to be subbed. He wasn't having the best game, was he? But it's a sign of a good striker that even on a bit of an off day, you can still score a goal in a high pressure moment like that.
Well, I think he was. I thought he was playing well. It's just those little decisions and moments that are just not quite happening for him at the moment. I think he said himself in the player interviews with Blackpool that he played poorly. I think Gates said the same, so that's always a good sign if we played like we have, and all the players think they've not played that well. I don't think CJ Hamilton would have made the difference as much as Lavery did in that game. So it's kind of like who would you play instead on that left wing? I quite like him in that position, to be honest. I think especially in a game like that where it's off the ball work is the key. I think there was a moment in the 50th minute or so just before where they were playing about at the back, and clearly Lavery, there was just a switch in his head. He was like, you know what, fuck this, and then just pressed and charged about 4 players. That was when he nicked the ball off the goalkeeper, and I can't remember what the chance was at the end of that because we had about 19, but that was just simply from him just for some reason just turning and doing it. And he's this player that can sense things sometimes with pressing that other players can't. So he was really key, I thought, to the way we played in the second half.
I think, just to jump in a second as well on Lavery, I think that what was irritating me a bit about people getting on Lavery's back was that he's been playing on the on one side of a 3 up front, and then we'd gone to a sort of 4-4-2 come 4-2-4, where he's really now playing like a sort of a wide midfielder, which is really not his game, And I think I felt like cut him a bit of slack because he's a centre forward, and he was really playing out of position then. And as Sean said, still putting an absolute shift in, and he's done everything right apart from score, and now he's scored. So hopefully he's going to be, actually getting back to being on fire.
Less snatchy as well. Yeah. Hopefully that goal's calmed. It's good. He's off the score sheet anyway. There was 3 changes made not long after that goal. Husband, Carey and Hamilton on for Thompson, Gabriel. So Lavery, as we've just mentioned, Sean, CJ Hamilton did make a very good impact. I know we've been a bit harsh on him on air, but I think he did have a very good game, and he was nearly amongst the goals, nearly getting the equaliser. So
yeah, that was a great ball across as well. to him at the back post. I think, yeah, I quite like the fact that those substitutions stayed as well. Like we still made those triple subs after the goal, because I know that some managers get a bit weird where suddenly always scores, so that completely changes the pattern of the game, but the same things were still happening, so the same subs still needed to be made, and it just allowed us to keep that energy up in the final third. And it showed, didn't it, with us sort of sustaining the pressure straight from that goal. And then after the CJ Hamilton chance, then we get our goal as well.
So Nick, talk us through the goal. Obviously, it's come from a corner. In my show notes, I've put brilliantly worked set piece corner that looks like it's been worked on in the training ground. Because when I forget who took the corner, I was thinking, oh God, it's too long. But that looked like it was planned to me.
Yeah, Kenny peeled off his man brilliantly, didn't he? And I think Sandy Porter's mentioned in the comments there that Big Gaz got involved with the Burnley defender. Kenny peels off to the back post, and calm as you like Kenny is, squares a great ball across. And the thing is, as well, set pieces for us. Particularly in first, they were terrible.
Remember that first half? Do you remember the first half one where we didn't even get
a
across
short
it?
one? Yeah, and then another one where it didn't beat the first man, and it's like, come on, you're away at Burnley, it's tough. You've got to try and make the most of these set pieces, and thankfully we did on that one. It was Kenny peeled off brilliantly, laid it across, and who else do you want there? But super Jerry Yates, and if there was pandemonium for the second goal, well, the third one, it was just. Like I said at the start of the show, that's what football's about. Moments like that, you'll remember it in 20 years' time. It was absolute carnage, and it's great when it's horrible when you're next to home fans when they're scoring and going 2-0 up. But when you're coming back from 3-1 down, absolutely fantastic. Everyone was just piling to what, and I've seen the footage of it since. It just looks amazing. There's been a few different accounts on Facebook and Twitter saying, look at this reaction from Blackpool fans for 3-3. And absolute carnage and absolutely phenomenal and very well deserved as well. There was only one team in it in that second half, and it was thoroughly deserved.
Yeah. Mitch, from your vantage point, whereabouts were you exactly when the ball at the back of the net, and what were the scenes like where you were? As I said, for me, there was just bodies everywhere. It was just a brilliant moment. It's something I will never forget, that one that hit the back of the net. I think it's got to be up there in one of my, top 5, top 3 moments ever being at an away game. It was just brilliant. It was. I can imagine snowball. Not that I ever have, but they say snowballing heroin and cocaine at the same time. I can imagine it'd be like that. that high you got when that hit the back of the net.
Yeah, it was unreal. And all goals are great goals, but Jerry goals are nearly as good as Gary goals. Look, is there a player you want to score that goal more in the world than Jerry Yates, really? And I think it wasn't just that it was 3-3. It was that it was Jerry, and that he that photograph, I don't know if you've seen the picture of him, where he's sort of wheeled away, and he's just looking at the fans with this look of pure delight and joy. And what's wonderful about Jerry is he still looks like, I don't know, he still plays football like he's just scored in the playground, and he's running off going, look at that, to his mates. There's just such a delight in that. So yeah, it was one of those goals where after we'd scored it, about 90 seconds later, I had to kind of stop and sort of kneel down for a minute, because I was worried that I might keel over, because everybody around me had celebrated so hard that I'd just I'd gone a bit faint.
I'm just going to check my heart rate, actually, on my heart rate monitor on your Apple Watch. I'm just going to have a quick look at that. Well, Matt, still talk while I'm doing it.
I had quite literally gone dizzy, and I think the last time I did that was probably at Wembley when Kenny put his second in. It was magic.
You can only check your current day. I'll check it on my phone. Sean, view from the press box. You obviously said you'd rather be in with the fans, but you were around Burnley supporting commentators and media people. How did you react? Are you always professional in this situation, or surely you couldn't help yourself sat there and watching that? And what did it look like from above?
Becoming less professional part of the week, to be honest. It was very much a fucking get in, what have you.
Do you get off your seat? Do you get off your
seat?
No,
not that wild. Give me a chance, eh? We're early. We're warm in the season. We'll get to that stage eventually. But
how can you contain yourself though?
Because you like grit your teeth. It's one of those like, you know, when people like you win something or you score a goal and you get almost like an anger of like fucking proving everyone wrong anger. This is like, that's how I'm feeling about Blackpool at the moment. So it's very much one of those celebrations. But I just instantly turn to my right and I see just legs in the air, fucking people just storming any place that they possibly can. People having no actual idea what they're doing at that point in time. I think that's the best bit about those goals. But you know what? There's a thing about football for me that I like, and it's the shout of like "go on" before the ball goes in. And Jerry's chance just after his goal, where he does that unbelievable turn in behind the defender and then strikes at Muric. When he does that turn and he's running through, and you hear that big "go on," you just thought that was the moment. And I'm convinced there would have been at least 5 deaths in that away end if that had gone
in. How would you have reacted? How would you have reacted if that? You would. I think.
And I jumped up then, John.
You'd have been demented, Nick. I think.
Oh, I think there'd be people jumping into the Burnley fans on the pitch. It'd have been absolute. I mean, it was carnage for the third, but it'd have been next level if that had gone in. And it was such an amazing turn as well. And I watched it back this morning, and you know, someone had said, "Oh, he could have squared it," but you're not going to
squaring that.
You're not going to. No, of course you're not. And to be fair, it was a very good save from the keeper. You know, and even then, it nearly crept in.
Yeah.
It just floated. It kind of just floated in slow motion, didn't it?
Yeah, if that's Burnley in the first half, it's going in, isn't it? You know, everything was going in for them. It was an amazing turn, and yeah, my God, we'd be talking about it for the rest of our lives, wouldn't we? We'd have ended up winning that game 4-3. It would have been unbelievable, but sadly wasn't to be. But yeah, it was brilliant turn and a great effort and a decent save.
I think as well with that the initial movement from Jerry, you see him sort of sensing what Bowler was looking for an option there, and Bowler threads that beautiful passing, and Jerry's movement off there in that turn. I think we've said in the past that Jerry can kind of do things in that central number 9 role that probably other players in the squad can't, and I think that was a perfect example of it. That was him like back to his best. That turning behind that was peak Jerry in League One when he was on that run of scoring those just beautiful goals. And I just thought, this is him back now. I feel like that was the real moment for him to kickstart.
Sean, if you just look at that comment from Mike Robinson there, if Jerry hadn't scored just before, I don't think he does that turn. I think that's spot on. Spot on. It's just a perfect illustration of how much football is a confidence game, isn't it? Right. Final big moment of the game came in 84 minutes, Mitch. The Sonny Carey incident. It was they call it a professional foul, what he did. That Matson's breaking. Sonny Carey's come across, he's purposely clipped him. Not dangerous play, not in a goal scoring opportunity. It's a nailed on yellow. It's like, do that again and you're off from the ref. But the little man ref, who Eddie pointed out, he said he looks like a jockey, completely bottled it, didn't he?
Well, it was the classic case of a referee having a situation on his hands and then thinking, right, I've got to send off the Burnley lad, and thinking, well, I better send off the Blackpool lad as well because it's going to cause too much, you know. And basically, Carey got sent off because of the reaction of Matson. You know, that's why he got sent off. I'd be really interested actually to know what has he actually put the red down as, you know? Because sorry, go on, Sean.
Yeah, I think there seems to have been a sort of tweaks in the rules in recent times of the fact that if there's any intent to play, no intent to play the ball, it should be a straight red regardless of the situation. But I also think that there's this informality of that rule for a long, long time that it is a yellow, and it's like referees have applied it informally as a yellow card. And I think The issue for us is that we won't be able to appeal it. And as we saw today, obviously with Trippier, practically identical tackle that's been overturned by VAR, because the informality in the head of referees is still that that's just a booking. But the law will say that we probably won't get that overturned if we do go for it, because he had no intent to play the ball. He has just completely wiped the man out.
But we see that all the time, though, don't we?
I know we do. That's the thing.
What's the actual ruling? Is that a yellow card? Because we see that, obviously, if it's a goal scoring opportunity, fair enough. But those type of challenges, we've seen it all the time at Bloomfield Road away when it happens to our players. It's a yellow, and you're not happy about it. You accept it.
So the law is that they should all be reds, but then it's never applied that way because it happens so often. So I guess it's a case of the inconsistencies of refereeing, and we'll probably see that incident about 15 times now, and there'll be about 8 different results on either side.
Not in defence of the ref, but we sort of look at the ref psychology. Matson's reacted in such a way that possibly the ref has, to be fair to referees, A, they've always been shit, B, they'll always be shit, and C, actually, they're always unfair to everyone. So, complain about referees is what every team that every set of fans all over the country doing it all the time. But a referee gets a split second to see it, and Matson gets up with such fury and lays into Carey that maybe that makes the referee think, actually, that must have been more violent than it looked. You know what I mean? Maybe the referee has assumed that Carey's been higher on him or has gone in studs up on the back of his knees or something like that, and he hasn't. He's just gone across and clipped him. The referee's got it wrong, but I think the point is it's the reaction that's got him sent off, isn't it? It absolutely is. Which I think, I haven't seen the Trippier one, but I think I heard it on the radio, and I think from what I heard on the radio was whoever Trippier fouled got up and raged at him, and the referee pulled the red out for Trippier that then with VAR got turned to a yellow. So I think that was almost the same situation.
I think the one on Trippier was on De Bruyne, wasn't it? It was probably higher up than Carey's was, and the ref straight to the monitor, and within 5 seconds he's decided it's a yellow. I was surprised he sent him off. I thought it was a yellow, but like Sean says, if that's in the law, then are we going to get it overturned? And the problem is, I think if you lose your appeal, does it not get increased? Does it go to
it's already, I think it's 3 game ban, isn't it? So it can be. I think they sort of say I think it's a genuine appeal. So I think they just keep it.
It's a 3 game for dangerous or violent. Whatever
that's
the
what
wording
it's been sent off for.
Yeah. Is it? All right.
Yeah, because the no intent to play the ball kind of falls under the same category. Can we talk about Marv's reaction, please, and how he just legged it about 50 yards over the pitch and grappled anyone in sight from Burnley? Because I thought that was superb.
They're only a little team, Burnley. Did anyone else notice that?
When you watch the replay, it's like Marv shoving about 6 Burnley players back at once. He's got the guy, I think it's Matson, he's got by the throat, and there's all these Burnley players behind him, and Marv's just pushing, and they're all going backwards with just Marv there. Connolly's wrestling anybody he can find, whilst Gaz just wanders off towards the corner flag, sort of going, oh, God.
Well, actually, where was Gaz when all this was happening?
He always does it. Whenever there's a melee on the pitch, he always wanders off in the opposite direction as if he's entirely aloof from that sort of thing. And butter wouldn't melt. Yeah, he never gets involved in that kind of... The only time Gaz ever gets involved in anything is with his own with the own player he's up against, and he does that thing where he throws them off like that. And he'll do shit. He'll throw himself to the floor and pretend he's been shot and do all sorts of shit but he never gets involved in the scrap on the pitch. He always walks away from it. I don't know if he's trying to keep himself contained, but
that's probably it, Mitch.
Yeah,
because he knows he'll probably put someone in hospital if he gets involved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But the thing is now, if we're not, we'll see whether we appeal it. But from what Sean said, if that's the law, we might not do. We were already struggling in midfield, weren't we, in terms of numbers? That's Carey out for 3 games. The team really is just going to pick itself, isn't it, over the next few games, pretty much. Certainly in the middle.
It's a good job we've only got Nigel Pearson up next day.
I bet Matty Virtue must be rubbing his hands together thinking, yes, there's another one out. I'm not going out on loan.
He'll get COVID.
Yeah.
It'd be remiss not to talk about Grimmy's save and the 8 minutes of injury time that inexplicably got shown up on the board. Sean, I've not seen it on the extended highlights, which I'm quite annoyed because I want to see it again. It was down the far end. Describe the chance if you can remember it.
Yeah, the ball comes across the face, and the lads were 8-9 yards out from goal, and Grimmy's just spread himself and saved it with his leg. And it's weird because even as the ball flashed across goal, it wasn't going in, because I've got that real confidence now that Dan Grimshaw's just going to pull off a ridiculous save every week, and he did it again. It was a great save. I think both of the keepers did well with that, to be fair, with sort of using their legs for saving chances, and he did it again. He spread himself well, and I just didn't think it was going to go in, regardless of whether they could have been 1 yard out. And I just knew that Dan Grimshaw was owed a wonder save at some stage. We'd not had one yet, so we were.
You get one per game. You're right.
Yeah, exactly.
8 minutes, gentlemen. Nick, were you worried? Were you worried
yeah.
when the 8 minutes went up? And
even though we'd been in the ascendancy, and up until the red card, it looked like there was only one team going to go on and get a fourth goal. But Tim said to me, 8 minutes. He went, they're going to get one, aren't they? And I was just like, oh, don't say that. And they absolutely wouldn't have deserved it. But in 8 minutes, you're thinking there's going to be a chance, and there wasn't. Thankfully, Grimmy saved it, and it'd have just been so unjust if they'd have got a winner. And we were they did have a bit of pressure, didn't they, in that 8 minutes, and we were struggling to get out a bit. And I just thought, and there was a couple of corners, and you're thinking, is it going to happen?
Please, God, no.
Yeah,
please, God, no.
It'd have been absolutely soul destroying if they'd have got a winner, but thankfully they didn't. We managed to defend it all and hung on. But I mean, 8 minutes, it's a long time, isn't it? I know there was the red cards and there was quite a few substitutions. I thought maybe 5 or 6 minutes. 8 just seemed a little bit too much for me. But thankfully, we managed to see it out and got a very well-deserved point.
Well, I think the injury time was in some ways as intense as the goals, but sort of dragged out and horrifying and horrible. The goals were those moments from John. The goals were the speedball moment that you mentioned before, and the injury time was the come down, just dragged out for ages. It was just horrendous, and we just didn't seem to be able to clear it. It was one of those where there was one point where the ball went in and Grimmy went to get it, and Marv, for no reason at all, decided that he would clear it instead, and he sliced it up in the air, and then it came down, and then sort of we'd loft it away, and then the player chasing it would be Bowler, and you think, well, he's not going to get it, so they'd head it back, and then we'd play the right ball for Bowler out, but then it'd be Medine running after it this time, so he's not going to get it on the floor, and then it'd come back, and it was just horrible. And Husband just kept heading it away. He was like the only player who seemed to be able to get the ball more than about 5 yards away from himself. It was horrific. It was so horrific that I actually can't remember the Grimshaw save, because the whole 8 minutes has created this turmoil that I've sort of processed into one horrific experience. And then the final whistle went, and it was wonderful.
Best analogy ever, that, by the way. Perfect.
Did make me chuckle. Reminded me. Well, no, we best not go into it.
Better go there. Just as Leanne just said there, those 8 minutes were awful. It was just awful moment. But Sean, just to close things off, do you think that red card gave a bit more impetus to Burnley? There were men on the rope, to use a boxing analogy from last night. There were men on the ropes, weren't they, at that time? And we were in the ascendancy, and I think that gave him a bit of a lift in it, just to sort of a change in atmosphere in the game.
Well, we'd run out of central midfielders, so it was kind of the case of we couldn't control the midfield anymore, because that's obviously where we were breaking up play in the midfield, and once we'd lost Carey, then we kind of lost that ability, and they were able to just kind of overload us in the wide areas and get balls into the box. Again, it was one of those, apart from the Grimshaw chance, the rest of it, we defended the 18-yard box really well, but a bit like QPR, it feels nervous at the time, but then it's not in reality.
I was laughing at that one. Yeah, minutes we're trying to get to sleep at 6 a.m.
I just started typing in the private chat to you then, John. I'd put, no word of a lie, I'd put 6 a.m. and then that popped in the comments. Oh,
lovely stuff, Michael. And I've told you to change your name, Preston. You need to get that surname changed, but yeah, brilliant. Right, let's move on to Twitter reactions, fans' Twitter reactions before we head off. I do ask for people's thoughts on the game, so let's get one going. Barry Roberts said the thing that stood out to me is the way we went quiet, and they did it after it was 2-1, and then after 3-1, and then it was us all game from the second half. Love the banter and the overall desire. Next up, Jacko. Couldn't be there. I was returning from holiday. This is a game we wouldn't have gone. This is a game we wouldn't have got back into last year. Is this a game? Sorry, he's put that as a question. We seem to be building a good spirit and togetherness. Time for the board to back the manager and get a touch more quality in. Then this team could have a good season. We do need the backing from the board, gents, and I think it's even more important. It's critical now. We've got no central midfield. So, Sean, do you envisage any activity in the transfer market between now and the close of the window? Perhaps another loan signing or any other stellar signings that are bubbling up behind the scenes?
Any more failed medicals or rejected bids? No.
Hey, Oxford are struggling. Cameron Brannigan.
Yeah, I know, it's
putting in
funny,
a transfer request.
I'd be very, very surprised when we've got a free week if we don't see one or two come in personally, especially when he's been talking to free agents. This is about the time where they're going to start to realise that if they thought they were getting something better, then perhaps it's not coming about, and we're a really good option for them. So you can have a look down that list of free agent names, and there's a few that would probably stand out as players that would be linked with. I think Michael Appleton said he wouldn't be surprised to see us linked with 10 or 12 names in the next week or so, and that was kind of hinting at the amount of people he's kind of been looking at and speaking to. So he's clearly a busy man. He just seems to be doing the rounds of free agents all day of the week. But also there's a George Hurst at Leicester, loanee, who it seems like we've been interested in for a while. So he could well be someone that perhaps we've looked at. Whether we're looking at him at this moment in time, I don't know. We have been linked recently, but he's someone that we definitely were looking at earlier in the summer. So he could be one. Elijah Dixon Bonner, who was at Liverpool at the start of summer, he was tentatively linked at the start of the summer, and he was someone that I think probably was doing the rounds, particularly when Critchley was in charge, given the ex-Liverpool connection. So he's another that's still a free agent, bizarrely. I don't quite know why, but he would be a good addition in central midfield. But I'd be very, very surprised if there's not one or two by Bristol City.
Just as an aside before we go on to the next one, isn't it unfortunate to see Aston Villa losing every single away game and their fans being up against, being dishing out a lot of vitriol against the management and the coaching stuff? So very sad to see.
Let's hope they hold on for the FA Cup, because that'd be nice if we can draw them in the cup.
We could seal the deal, couldn't we, by beating them in the cup?
Yeah.
Oh, imagine.
Wonderful.
Steve H, great comeback yesterday. The players fought hard for the draw and had chances to win it. Are we as fans or warming to the Appleton way? Well,
yes.
Steve, Sean already has. He's white hot to the Appleton. Can't tell by two beers, can you? Appleton way. Are the rest? I think there was a bit more of a connection there, gents, yesterday after that win.
I am hugely. I really am. My reaction when he was appointed was I thought the board were trolling us. You know, it was like, how have you looked around the whole country and then come up with that appointment? It's what are you doing? And I suppose once I'd got to know what he was about a bit, I was okay. Maybe, you know, I think I think the problem was that if you remembered him from first time round, you had this vision in your head of like 2012 era Michael Appleton just spoiling games and sort of the post Holloway the post Holloway thing where it was just he was the beginning of everything as it all just fell apart and went downhill. But I'd watched some of the pre-season games and looked at the early season games, and I'd say, well, I like what he's trying to do, but I'm not sure that it's working. And then, yeah, I'm just so sold on what he's trying to do. It's fantastic. It's fearless. It's brave. It's everything that we wanted last year when we'd go somewhere like Derby and try and draw a game 0-0 and lose 1-0 and go, why are we so tepid? Why are you so timid? What are we frightened of? You know, it's everything that we actually asked for last year. And he seems to be tactically astute as well. I mean, all right, Bowler playing in the 10 didn't work, but that was a pretty good idea, actually, because Bowler is our best player. So why not put your best player in the most creative role in the pitch? Why not give that a try? You know, and I really, really like what he's trying to do. And I really like the way he seems to like footballers. We had on the pitch last in that game, we had at one point 5 really attacking players and Gabriel bombing forward. So kind of 6 really attacking players. That would never have happened last year. Never. So I'm you know, I'm clinging on to Sean's coattails as he drives the Appleton train.
What I would say is I think that the way he speaks is kind of starting to filter through to the fans as well now, and he's really good at sort of explaining things and what he is about because he's so no nonsense. I mean, look, what were the as Mitch kind of touched on what were the 2 things that people wanted last season? It was for us to go for games that we were too cautious in, and it was for our manager to be honest and open, and we've got both of those, so that is already an improvement on what we've got, particularly when it's working on the pitch with a squad that I was convinced wouldn't be able to play the quality of football that they've produced over the last 3 games or so. If you look at players in that team and where they were, I thought Dougal was probably just about done, to be honest, in terms of being a nailed on starter, and I thought that'd be a position we'd definitely look to sort of introduce someone new into. And now for me, he's one of the first names on the team sheet at the moment, and you're seeing that individual improvement in players and you're seeing that desire for them to be brave. I mean, we're 5 games into the season and we've just gone toe to toe with Burnley at Turf Moor, playing that way with a brave fashion. Should have won. If this is only 5 games in and you're showing that bravery, that's great. But obviously, the other side is that it's a squad game. It's a long season, and a couple more injuries, and we'll have no one left.
The old analogy: it's not it's a marathon, not a sprint. Right, thanks for that comment. Athers, get well soon, Joe. We need to get you an unclean bell, by the way. Great fight back against a very good Burnley. They absolutely battered us first half. Under Critchley, we'd have tried damage limitation and settled for a 3-1 loss. It ended up like Peterborough 8 really won to Appleton. Entertaining football and a team with fight and lots of heart. I think Joey's mirroring what we've just said. Final 2 before we go. Jack Fallon. This time last week, we'd have all taken 4 points from 2 very difficult looking away games. We probably should have had 6. Still short in the squad, though. Perhaps we're in a better place than most thought. I mean, yeah, let's just take a minute just to reflect. QPR away, Burnley away. 2 very, very tough games where we've traditionally never got points from both places, and we've come out with 4. Should have had 6.
And what Sean said before, the short phrase sums up the difference to me. We've gone toe to toe. We haven't gone and sat in and caught them on a counter-attack and sort of got them with a sucker punch. We've gone toe to toe with these sides, and that's satisfying. I mean, we're probably going to end up finishing like 15th or 16th again, because some weeks it's not going to work. We're going to go toe to toe with teams and they might blow us away. But I think we're going to have a lot less, we've just won that game, or we've just lost that game. I think we're going to have some absolutely fantastic games where we come away absolutely thrilled like we have in this game. Some games where we might batter some teams and some games where we might get battered. And ultimately, that's just more fun than sensible football, isn't it?
And that's the thing is, look, I don't want to rewrite history with Neil Critchley, but the run of games where we were picking up those amazing results that around that Sheffield United time, that was completely unsustainable for the amount of chances we were actually creating. It's a much more sustainable platform. The way that we're creating chances from different areas of the pitch, we're not you're not saying coming back off the back of that game, going into that Burnley game. My first thought was we're going to be really reliant on Josh Bowler here, and we weren't. I think that was important as well. And it's that sustainability about the way we're playing. If you're creating from different areas, creating different types of chances, you're looking at set pieces. We're a lot better at those as well now at the moment. And that's how these performances will last. Whereas you always kind of felt that you couldn't just keep going away to these places, picking up the odd goal and then sort of being wiped the floor of generally in build-up, which is what we did at that Sheffield United game, is a perfect example of that.
Just in the comments there, I think there's one from Alex Davis who said, the way he's so tactically astute and makes his changes. That's what I really like about him. He won't wait till 70 minutes, which we probably would have done under Critchley. He'll make a change, and even against Burnley, we're in the ascendancy. He makes 3 changes. He's not changing his plan. He knows what he wants to do, and he sticks to it. And I think it's brilliant. I really do. And I think the team are buying into it, and hopefully the majority of the fans will do now.
Alex also said we should get Kai back before the window to play number 10, so I think he's the commenter of the day.
Alex, I think you can expect an invite from Mitch to be the next panelist on this podcast, or to what is it when people it's when you renew your vows? If you're already married, you renew your vows, and I think Alex may be your best man at your renewal ceremony, Mitch, if you ever have one.
What, with Sully Kai?
Yeah, no, with Alex and Sully Kai.
Who am I renewing my vows with?
Gaz.
Yeah, Gaz might get jealous. So
well, I've saved my
forget
stat.
that.
There hasn't been a moment.
Right, how do I get that comment off? Right, it's disappeared. We're getting a lot of comments coming in. Right, finally, last one before we go. From Andy. I had my doubts about Appleton. I thought he was totally inflexible, but after, let's face it, 4 unexpected points in a week, I'm prepared to admit I may have been a bit nasty in writing him off. Same as I did with Keogh last season. I think we've all been there, gents, haven't we?
I am quite interested to see what happens when we lose and play poorly, mind, and see what the reaction is then. Because I still think that this fan base is so flip-floppy at the moment that anything could happen. But exactly, they probably will be. But that'll be the test of how on board everyone is with what's happening.
Just to close this show off, Phil Clifton is taking not an alternative view, a different view. MA has inherited players and built up in a group built up by Critch. We don't have to pick one and slag off the other. Yes, we do, Phil.
Of course we do.
It's not called Neil Bitchley or Neil Quitchley for nothing.
You need the sound effect, John.
That's
the thing, though. When you play well, that's football, isn't it? And that's football fans. It's you.
We're all so fickle, aren't we?
Yeah.
But if you didn't get high and low in the way you do with football, then you wouldn't bother trudging around watching it, would you? Because it'd just be observing some blokes playing a pretty absurd game, kicking a ball around that's, from a distance looks pretty much the same every week. It is exactly this sort of schizophrenic nature of football that makes it addictive, because you're always chasing this moment where you're happy and your team's played well, and you that's what it is.
Right. Anyone else got anything to say before we go?
Bipolar, David says. Yeah, that's better.
That's a perfect description of your average football fan, isn't it? Not even your average one. Right. I think that's it for the evening, gents. Thanks for your company. It's been an excellent show as always. Thanks everybody for your comments in the chat. Yeah, like and subscribe to the channel if you're watching this on YouTube. It's the notification bell. Let's get the subscribe count up. Just give everyone a little teaser to everyone viewing and listening. Keep this date free in your diary. Saturday, the 8th of October. And you might want to go to the Winter Gardens and the Opera House that day after the Watford game. I'll just leave it at that. Won't say any more. But you might want to visit the Winter Gardens on the 8th of October. On that note, I'll play the outro music. Everyone's smirking. But keep your eye on our socials. There's something big happening. You know, on Independence Day, when that guy that never sees his son, he passes over that little model of the space shuttle and tells his son, just tell him something big's going to happen. Tell him something big's about to happen. I think that's the case with us.
I would argue some people may want to avoid it like the plague as well, but
right, shut up, Sean. Shut up. Just because you're going to get subbed. Just because you're going to get subbed. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. Thanks for downloading. And up the pool. What a day it was.
Up the pool.
Up the pool.